white people are not your enemy, and if you just try to embrace them and be friends with them, you will see how loving white people can be. That's all I said. All the black people in my comments, you guys are just proving my point.
Like, it's just like they're bad customers and they don't tip. No, it's like they are the worst customers you could ever possibly have, and then they don't tip.
So you designed an entire system for your success, cradle to grave. You succeeded at nothing but oppression. You have no art that you didn't steal, no culture you didn't appropriate, and no identity that isn't borrowed.
Where's crying white woman tears when you are the offender fatigue? Where?
Hey, friends, welcome. It is a time to talk about a term that I frankly did not know existed, at least not in the capacity that it's being used. Maybe you've heard it or seen it on TikTok. Maybe you've seen videos about it, called black fatigue.
Black fatigue is real. I think society as a whole is there. We are just so unbelievably fed up with the ghetto ratchet behavior, entitlement, the victimhood. This is why people have black fatigue.
White people are tired of being called racist. It is exhausting. The white people are tired of racism, period. They don't care anymore.
My only black fatigue complaint is the black women. They will make you wait, and I'm over it.
So black fatigue, the term is coined by Mary Frances Winters, and it's really describing the emotional, the psychological, the exhaustive toll that is experienced by black individuals by persistent impacts of racism, microaggressions, intergenerational trauma, and on in a society and culture that often doesn't allow or is uncomfortable with them existing. The term has popped up a lot in recent weeks. I've been seeing more and more content about it. But when I understood black fatigue the way that Mary Frances Winters described it, I saw another version at the exact same time pop up about black fatigue in regards to white people who are uncomfortable or are feeling exhausted by race conversations.
If a white person posted a video like that talking about black folks, they would ban your account and report it to Homeland Security. TikTok's letting y'all get way too comfortable on here. And you wonder why racism still exists. And you wonder why they always play the victim card.
I want you to track with the heart of what I'm saying and not necessarily the semantic. And this is something that I feel like I need to caveat at the beginning of this video because I'm really going to speak from the heart and speak from a personal place, just as I expect you will in the comments, and being respectful to your fellow engagers down there. I think it's important though to discuss this, especially in the guise of media, which is what this channel focuses on, because when we start talking about the burnout and the exhaustion around racial struggle, I think we're talking about something that many people before us have already experienced and already had to kind of like warn us about. And that cost, right? Counting the cost of activism, advocacy, inclusion, these are not things that just happen. Media is a medium. It communicates things to its audience. It communicates a point of view. That's the goal of media. So what I'm seeing across media and film in particular, and the thing that I often talk about when I talk about, why are black movies using the same formulaic crap that they always use? Why are we still getting packaged this idea of blackness that frankly is not nuanced, it is not colorful, it is not diverse? I have to consider this holistic perspective of quote unquote the other side.
There is just so much audacity that has been coming from the black community ever since BLM. It's like BLM had black people so gassed up and audacious that people just really started thinking they could get away with everything. Like being black became a crutch to get away with the worst possible behaviors and the rudest personality traits that any other demographic, if they did, that people would be absolutely disgusted by.
There's also a third angle to black fatigue that I almost forgot to mention, and it's the angle of black people who are exhausted by the behavior of other black people who do not conform to their idea of blackness. Wow, that was a lot. What did I just say? Black people who feel like, oh, that black person over there, they're making us look bad, right? She wearing a bonnet, that's too much. Like, it's that type of experience.
A lot of people don't. I'm glad there's a lot of black people stepping into the play making these videos and talking like this, because it's not self-hatred. It's not. Like, I want the best for the black community. I want, it doesn't make sense. it's frustrating being profiled. It's frustrating being viewed as like, oh my God, she's black. I wonder what's going to happen. And yeah, those things are frustrating. But at the same time, it's like, damn, how are we acting in the streets? At some point, we got to take our own responsibility and make the changes for ourselves.
When I consider that there's also this element of Black people being, exhausted by Blackness in different forms, I got to consider that media, right? I'm exhausted by slave films, right? And I've told you guys have seen videos on the channel. If you haven't, I encourage you to go check them out. But I struggle to think that we need any more. I think we've got it covered. I think we've done a great job with slave pieces. I think we've really gone the gamut of making sure that it's realistic and hyper, like the perspective. And I think we've done enough. And so that is my personal view. So I can almost identify with this third element, this third group of exhaustion around, Blackness and like different things, but in a specific form. And so I have to say that Black fatigue in Hollywood isn't just about burnout from fighting for the inclusion and representation that we desire. It's also about the limited ways that our stories are being told despite progress, supposedly, in the world.
250 years where they were victims of crimes against humanity, followed by an 89-year period where they were technically classified as human, so long as they didn't try to be a human in the same room as the ruling class. That was followed by this little green period. That's the period where Republicans blamed them for the consequences of the red and yellow periods, while at the same time celebrating building a post-racial society. And now that this is being pointed out, MAGA people have fatigue. The fact is, when it comes to quality of life, every single metric measuring health, wealth, and happiness proves that the world we've built creates cruel and intentional barriers for Black Americans.
Let's address that there can be a mental exhaustion when you are constantly related on any one thing. Anything that you keep looking at, you think of the watched pot, right? It never boils. Anything you keep looking at is going to exhaust, it's going to frustrate because it's not moving fast enough. This is not new, right? This is a civil rights challenge through and through. This is a trying to get something to change challenge through and through. You have to consider that there's going to be fatigue when long pathway to change is there. So we're talking about an endurance conversation, right? So like the first element of this is that burnout is inevitable when you have a long runway. But also telling people, hey, just wait your turn doesn't really work when it's been like hundreds of years.
We're tired. We're tired of being grouped into that mess, hearing it. The Black community, majority, do not take responsibility. We're tired because we want to progress in society. So many cultures, right, that are taking responsibility for things that have happened, don't victim blame others and themselves, and they're not living in oppression mentality, right? They're free. Black community, we're so enslaved up here that it projects onto every dynamic of society.
Is this all we are? Has no one seen that we've, progressed and grown, that we are complex individuals and not a monolith? And I hate saying that. I hate saying that phrase. We are not a monolith. It's 2025. Why am I still talking? Why am I still talking like it's 1967? Oh, right. Because clearly we are still in a time where integration is forced and not desired. And it's funny because I've talked to my mom about this a few times, where we talk about how integration, when it came about, right? I'm going back to like Brown versus Board of Education and the idea of separate but equal. The segregated, spaces over there, we would really like what they have in terms of access and resource for our students too. Could we sue for that? Can we sue for that access? And then it snowballs into the activism that says we want to be in all of these spaces, meaning we want Blacks, whites, and in between, doesn't matter what your race is, you should be able to access all of the spaces in the exact same way. No sitting in the back of the bus, no sitting and going around the back seat of the restaurant. We want access to be integrated. And on the surface, sounds incredible. But we never actually created any type of space for we had to teach integration. We never taught that philosophy. We never taught that mindset. So now we have just shoved people together, but we've given them no framework. We have done no work to actually progress it slowly. And the idea behind this is intentional. The idea is if we just smush them together, eventually they're going to have to get along. That was the idea. I don't want to oversimplify it. Of course, the nuance was we're not going to wait any longer for our turn to have access. We deserve it as human beings. We have inherent value. And so civil rights activists and abolitionists and all of these folks who are working to eradicate racism are saying this is important and this is work that we're going to do whether you're on board or not. But we didn't teach integration. We taught assimilation, and specifically assimilation only one direction. So now we've got people of color, Black people in particular, that are only accepted as long in those spaces as long as they assimilate to the dominant culture. This is the historical roadmap, right? Is you assimilate or die. And even if you do assimilate, it don't matter because we still don't like you. We still can see you for your skin color and not for who you are. Of course, I know everybody watching this video is incredibly enlightened. That would never be you. That might not be your family. That might not be how you were raised. But there was a time and a place where that was consistent. In this guise of Black fatigue from all three vantages, right? I just put up 4 for 3. Y'all knew. Listen, I went to school for theater, not math. All 3 vantage points for Black fatigue being exhaustion from just Blackness and being Black because of the systemic oppression and microaggression, exhaustion as a white person around race-related conversations, and then exhaustion as a Black person towards other people's Blackness. I think we have to consider that the media has created a very specific lane that we're all supposed to fall on. And we all know this, right? How propaganda works, how our silos work, how the information that we're filtered works. I feel like this would be a really good time for like a ground news like plug-in. If they want to like sponsor me, by all means. But my heart here is that these lanes are created for us, and media has done a great job upholding them. And I can't hold media and film and cinema all accountable for it. Obviously, it's the people behind these entities that do it. But when we talk about a culture that is built on systemic racism and oppression of other groups, that's going to seep into every element of everything, including art, including creativity.
I hear music about it. Each one of the names that lost their lives, I hear them in a song. And then you know what else I see? I see the brothers and sisters rapping that song in the clubs, yelling that song in their cars, talking about unaliving each other. That's what I'm tired of.
When we're talking about that Black on Black frustration, I think we're talking about what we're seeing pushed forward, which again, I still blame on what media wants us to believe about ourselves. And so we're getting an onslaught of just ratchet behavior as the standard, instead of it being an exception or instead of it being just a part of the diaspora. And so like, yes, of course, we're going to feel frustrated when other people don't perform Blackness in the way that we do, given that it's not internalized, anti-Blackness. But like, I can understand it. I can see why that would get to somebody. I could see why they'd be frustrated.
It's ghetto fatigue. It's hood fatigue. And that comes in all races, shapes, and sizes. We're tired of the trash behavior. It's trash fatigue. It's ghetto fatigue. It's hood fatigue. But it's not Black fatigue.
I think what we see now because of Black fatigue is diversity swaps without depth. And I talked about this a little bit in my box office flops video, but when I think about like the woke movie problem, right? And people are like, I don't want no woke film. And just because I think we're all fatigued by the forced identity and the forced inclusion, a la the integration problem that I was talking about before. What we're feeling is a fatigue around the lack of depth. We're feeling the forced assimilation. We're feeling that. And I don't blame people for being mad about it. Like, I can understand it. Now, that said, we might need to deal with some of your, some internalized racism that you're experiencing if seeing Black people frustrates you or seeing any people frustrates you. Like, we might need to work on that. But I can understand. I can definitely have an understanding of why that would feel that way. And finally, to deal with this first element, which is what the original term meant, we're talking about Black fatigue by just the mental exhaustion of being Black, specifically in this country, in the United States. I think that one of the things we're tired of seeing is messaging in media, messaging in films and cinema that pushes us into those oppressive spaces again, because I don't think people realize like that PTSD or the post-traumatic slave disorder, right? That can feel like it just comes rushing back.
There's a thing called epigenetics. Whatever happens to your ancestors affects your mentality, your emotions, and your physical body for generations after generations after generations. It makes you ill. It makes you suffer emotional triggers that you wouldn't normally have if your ancestors did not go through those things. That is science. Now let's talk about history. Tulsa, Oklahoma. Does that ring a bell? Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. If you don't know what happened there and you're a red hat, let me tell you a little history lesson. The Black community was crawling out of the hole that we left them in. And they created amazing communities where everybody was working together and they had fabulous education and people had money. The United States government bombed their communities, literal bombs dropped. Tulsa, Oklahoma, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
We're not telling stories so that we can keep the community going, you know, much like a griot. Like there's not an oral history. It's about sensationalizing. It's about trauma corn, as I've said many times before. And as I attempt to live and grow and progress forward, I just can't take much more of that. Like I've determined my own limits, my own capacity, that it's already hard living as is. And then you put on top of that being Black and then being a woman and then all of the many identities that can overlap. And that's not to say that I'm a victim of anything. It's just to say that it is a lot. It's a lot being human, period. It's even more so when you're in a society that has the history that we do. I think we just have to be really careful not to engage with media that is going to destroy our minds. And you guys know the channel is about examining our consumption. It's about examining what we take in, because that's the stuff that ultimately will develop and come out in our thought processes and our relationships and how we treat people and how we treat ourselves. And so I don't think this is about rejecting the progress that is made in the cinema and media space to be inclusive of all of these perspectives, but it's about really pushing past this phase of Black storytelling that is one note and formulaic. And it's about pushing into a space where we deserve to tell multiplicity of stories and not just one kind. So I want to know, are you experiencing any elements of Black fatigue? This is a safe space. Tell the truth, be honest, be kind to one another in the comments. But are you experiencing any of those three that I listed as far as Black fatigue goes? Did you know this was a thing? And did you hear about it? I'd love to know your experiences down in the comments below. And of course, you have got to join, you got to subscribe, and check out my Patreon. Whether you are a free or a paid member, there's lots of goodies over there that we are starting to finally roll out, including a watch-along movie club where we can watch movies together, cameras off, mics off, but have a really robust conversation in the comments. So I would love to have you there. I would love to have you here. And thank you for listening and thank you for engaging. I'll talk to you soon. Bye now.